Good morning, church family. What an awesome time of worship this morning. I hope you were able to get alone in whatever room you were watching church in and whatever people you were watching them with. I hope you were able to distance yourself to a place where you were all by yourself with Jesus and just receive the ministry from the worship this morning. It was very, very sweet. And I'm very, very grateful for that time we had this morning together. I'm going to continue our speaking along the lines of living toward the horizon. So when I first heard that theme, I had to decide, what is the horizon? I know what it is visually, but what does Webster say the horizon is? I found some very interesting things. First of all, Webster says the horizon is where the line where the earth seems to meet the sky. We know it really doesn't meet, but the visual angle that we get when we're far away looking far ahead, we see this line, and it appears that earth is meeting sky. It also says this: the horizon is the great circle of the celestial sphere, formed by the intersection of the celestial sphere with a plane tangent to the Earth's surface at an observer's position. So it's not so much where Earth meets sky, but where heaven meets earth at an observer's position. I think that's so amazing because that horizon then becomes personal for each one of us. It's where the celestial sphere meets a plane tangent to the earth at an observer's position. That means my horizon is my horizon, and your horizon is your horizon, because no two people can occupy the same space, and that plane cannot be tangent at the exact same space or place for every person. I think that's really amazing, and I'm personally going to have to think about that for a couple of weeks into the future. And the other definition that Webster says is this: something that might be obtained. The horizon is something that might be obtained. So as we live toward the horizon, it's not just a dream. It's not just a wish. It's not just a hope. It is something that can be obtained. And so today I'm going to talk to you about one of the ways that I think we can make that horizon obtainable for ourselves personally. I'm going to suggest to you that obtaining that horizon has everything to do with thirst. If you think about our natural bodies, thirst is something that is given to us as a gift by our Creator that drives us to life. When our body is deficient in water, when it's deficient in fluid, God gives us this gift of thirst, and it drives us to seek out that which will sustain our life. So what we choose to quench our thirst with can either enhance the health of our body, neutralize the health of our body, or in fact, diminish the health of our body. So for example, if you're thirsty and all you drink is Coke or Pepsi, probably not that great. But if you seek out water, if you seek out the thing that your body is mostly made of, and you begin to reproduce it or replace what is missing, then you're going to be healthy, and your skin is going to be nice and taut, and your eyes are going to be clear, and your kidneys and your heart is going to function well, and everything's going to be fine. The other thing is, not quenching our thirst at all can lead to death. it can absolutely kill you. People die of thirst. It impairs our physical function, both internally and externally. So if you're thirsty and your body is lacking water, your kidneys begin to reduce their function. The kidneys' function is to take out all the toxins from your body. So if there's not enough water there, the kidneys can't process the toxins because your blood needs fluid to stay thin enough to pass through your arteries and your veins. And the whole thing just begins to go a wire inside your body. And then, of course, we have cognitive changes, and it really, being thirsty, overly thirsty, truly impairs our ability to have appropriate cognitive responses, which is why you have like scenes in the old movies of people trying to drink sand in the desert because they think they're seeing an oasis and they're putting the sand in their mouth. It clouds how you see things and how your brain processes what the signals your eye is giving it. Well, along with all these physical responses to thirst, there are spiritual responses to thirst that are almost identical. Thirst is a gift of life. We have spiritual thirst as well as physical thirst. What we choose to satisfy our spiritual thirst with also affects the health of our spirit man and therefore our soul. And so if we are not quenching it with things that feed or things that nourish our spirit man and our soul, then we're in fact countering the gift of life that God gave us to sustain us. All that together could either excel or impede our progress toward the horizon. So I'm going to ask you this morning, what are you thirsty for? What are you really, really thirsty for? And how desperate are you to satisfy that thirst? Now, for me, I'm not really supposed to eat wheat, but there's nothing better than a stack of chocolate chip cookies and a glass of milk. Because nothing quenches the thirst of chocolate chip cookies like a glass of milk. You could substitute ginger snaps or shortbread, whatever your preference is, but milk is what quenches the thirst when you have cookies. If I'm eating something like salsa or something spicy, nothing quenches the thirst like a good, big, tall glass of ice cold water. And it just makes all that salty go right down. And it's so refreshing to have that tall glass of water or that tall glass of milk. Every once in a while, a little bit of ginger ale, just if the tummy's a little upset. Those are all things that satisfy my physical thirst. Some of us, though, as we relate to thirst, some of us are thirsty for things like money. Some of us are thirsty for things like success, love, status, peace. Sometimes some of us are so thirsty for peace that we're willing to get it at any cost. Sometimes we're thirsty for Jesus. And the very best thing is to be thirsty for Jesus and his plan for our lives. Because his plan for our lives could include success, it could include money, it could include love, it could include status. His plan for us could include all, some, or none of that. But if we're thirsty for his plan for our life, then our obtaining of the horizon is a sure thing. It leaves nothing to chance. As long as we're thirsty, we're desperately thirsty for Jesus and his plan for our life. It's easy to get a little confused when we're thirsty, and we might reach for what's within our grasp rather than waiting for what's appropriate. So, for example, the other day, I was in a position where I had to be someplace and I couldn't leave. And the only thing that was sitting in front of me was some soda that someone had bought and left behind. And I was so thirsty that I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to drink it. I'm not going to drink enough, all of it. I'm just going to drink enough to satisfy my thirst. And you know what happened after I drank it? Number one, I didn't feel well. And number two, I was just as thirsty as I was before, because it wasn't what I needed to quench my thirst. Sometimes we choose things that are okay, not necessarily detrimental. They're just not the very best thing. So, like, take juice, for example. How many of you like a big glass of juice? A big glass of juice, not necessarily wrong, and some of us really almost break our arms patting ourselves on the back thinking we've chosen juice over soda, but guess what? Juice is 100% sugar. So it's really no better for you than drinking a glass of soda, except that it does have a couple of natural vitamins in it, but it still bathes all your internal organs in an overabundance of sugar, which is really bad for you. So there has to be an element of discernment in how we quench our spiritual thirst. We have to look at what really satisfies our thirst. So if you're thirsty for love, does your spouse satisfy your thirst? That's okay, as long as your spouse is second. The minute your spouse becomes first, then it's like the soda or the juice instead of the water. Are you thirsty for family? Great, as long as family is second. Were you thirsty for children? Great, as long as they're second. Were you thirsty for work, success, status? Great, as long as it's second. Were you thirsty for personal pleasure? Are you thirsty to get home and get on that game after work? Are you thirsty for what? You fill in the blank. What are you thirsty for? What drives you? And then ask yourself, is that what's quenching my thirst when really my thirst needs to be quenched not by the bottle of soda that I found close to me and available, but the water that I should have waited for and really quenched my thirst? You just have to ask yourself these hard questions, because as Pastor Art has clearly laid out, we're on a roadway. We're on a journey that we've never traveled before. We're on a place without a map. We're on a place where we need a guide because we've never walked this way before. And you have to ask yourself some hard questions when you're in that place. You have to ask yourself, what am I going to satisfy my internal thirsts for? Because remember earlier I said that the thirst was a gift of life. So am I going to satisfy my thirst with things that produce life, that enhance my life? Or am I just going to satisfy my thirst with what's close at hand and may not be as beneficial or as good for me? It may look good, but it's really not as good for me as if I waited, or if I held out, or if I sought out the thing that was really best for me to quench my thirst. Every person's journey is their own. So I can't tell you what you're thirsty for, nor can I tell you what will quench your thirst, what God desires to give you to quench your thirst. But I can tell you this: if it's not centered around Him, you're probably just a beat off. There's a great video series. It's called I Am Second. And it takes pretty famous people, and it lets them tell their story about their relationship with Christ. And there's some pretty amazing people there, and they say, I am second. As you begin this journey toward your obtainable horizon this year, you're going to have to ask yourself, who's coming with you? Who needs to stay behind? What can go in your suitcase? What needs to be left behind? What are you going to pack with you for nutrition? What are you going to pack with to feed your soul? What are you going to pack to feed your spirit? What are you going to reprioritize? I remember one night being really, really tired, and one of my favorite times of the day is just going to bed with Pastor Art and just snuggling with him, and just the sense of peace and protection and security that comes when he wraps his arm around me. I'm like, okay, whatever happened today, I'm good, because I'm in bed with the one I love and everything is fine. But I knew that I had not spent time with the Lord that day. And I had to choose what I wanted over what I needed. I needed time with the Lord because he is my priority. And so I said to Art, will you please pinch yourself, do whatever you have to do to stay awake until I get back. But I just want to spend some time with the Lord before I come to bed. Honestly, it wasn't an easy choice because I was tired and I was afraid I would fall asleep in my time with the Lord, and I didn't want Art to fall asleep before I got back. But I had to prioritize the quenchers of my thirst. I had to be satisfied by Jesus before I could be satisfied by Art. And these are the hard questions that we have to ask ourselves on this journey this year, because we're going to have to leave some things behind. You probably remember a couple weeks ago, Pastor Art talked about the Wadi Kelt. Well, honestly, I had some things like my purse, some things that I really wanted to take with me down the Wadi Kelt, and the guy just said, leave it on the bus. And I said, no, I might need it. I might have need for this on the journey. And he said to me, leave it on the bus. And what I realized after I got down the Wadi Kelt, which, by the way, I did in high heels because no one told me we were doing the Wadi Kelt that day. So I had high heels on, hiking down this mountainous, treacherous path. If I'd had my purse, it would have kept my center of gravity off kilter. I wouldn't have been able to navigate myself with a purse that was the size and weight that the bag I had, with me, what it was. The best advice that guide gave me was leave it on the bus. If I had disregarded that advice, I could have been in peril. And so I want to tell you something. The Holy Spirit is going to say to you this year at some point, leave it on the bus. Don't drink this, drink that. Don't satisfy your thirst with this, satisfy it with that. And you're going to have one choice and one choice only. Obey or don't. If you don't, maybe you'll make it. Maybe you'll skate by. Maybe it'll be okay. But maybe you'll put yourself in peril and a danger that won't be evident immediately, but may be evident someplace down the road. And so I just want you to be very, very sensitive. Proverbs 4, verses 20 and 27, these next scriptures are going to be our guide. It says this, my child, pay attention to what I say. Listen carefully to my words. Don't lose sight of them. Let them penetrate deep into your heart, for they bring life to those who find them and healing to their whole body. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. That is such a good warning that the Lord gives us. And if we turn back then to Proverbs 3:5, it's rather similar, and it says this: "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take." We could substitute, he will show you which beverage to drink. He will show you what to use to satisfy your thirst. There's an interesting concept that our desires form our heart, but our heart also forms our desires. So when we seek the Lord and we desire the Lord above all else, that gives us a heart, a will, a strength to seek him. And so as we seek him, our desires are formed to seek him, and so our heart seeks him. If our heart is distracted by our earthly desires for pleasure, or for whatever, fame, love, success, status, whatever we talked about in the beginning, or you fill in the blank, whatever is your personal struggle, then our heart begins to seek those things to satisfy our desires. And then if our desires are improperly aligned, they again continue to form our heart until we're way off base. So I'm going to ask you as we start this journey, it's only 3 or 4 weeks old, we've just begun, many, many, many opportunities for adjustment. Begin to align your desires with the things of the Lord so that your heart will seek after the Lord, and your desires then will become even stronger toward the Lord, and your heart will seek after him harder, and before you know it, you will have obtained things that were only distant dreams 2 or 3 years ago. Turn with me to Psalms 37. 37, 3 and 5, 3 through 5. Psalms 37. Let's start in verse 4. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything you do to the Lord. Trust him, and he will help you. Both the American way and some of our personal ways are to be self-sufficient. We're taught that. Be self-sufficient. Do it yourself. Get it done. You're the maker of your own destiny. If you don't do it, it's never, it's got to be you. It's got to be you. It's got to be you. Well, you know what? That's a world philosophy. It's not a kingdom philosophy. A kingdom philosophy is you submit all your desires to the Lord and you let him give back to you what are his plans for you. You let him sift your desires through the grid of what he knows he has for you, what your fullest potential is, what the absolute best for you is. And then you take what he gives back to you and you let the Holy Spirit guide you on the road to obtain that. You don't do anything yourself. You do everything with prayer and supplication and thanksgiving. You do everything by consulting the Lord. And you say, oh, well, God doesn't talk to me like that. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. He will open doors for you. He will close doors for you. And all you have to do is stop banging on the doors that are closed and walk through the doors that are open. You want to be a millionaire? Great. Submit that to the Lord. If he says, yep, because I've gifted you as a giver and I'm going to let you be a millionaire so that you can give into my purposes and give into my kingdom, then you walk through every door he gives you, and by and by, you'll be a millionaire. And you'll be a millionaire because he desired that for you. Not just because you wanted to be rich and have all the things that you think are going to make you happy, because they're not. I know plenty of really wealthy people who are very, very miserable because their wealth is just that, pursued by, obtained by them, not by the Lord. So give your desires to the Lord. Trust in him, and he'll give you all the desires of your heart. Because remember, your desires shape your heart, and your heart shapes your desires. So a sure way to get every desire you have fulfilled is to submit every one of them to the Lord and let that process take place. The last verse I'm going to share with you is out of Galatians chapter 5. This should be just a little holdover from 2020. Tiny holdover, which is really all we're holding over from 2020. Just a couple tiny things. Galatians chapter 5, starting in verse 17. The sinful nature wants to do evil, which is just the opposite of what the Spirit wants. And the Spirit gives desires that are opposite of the sinful nature's desires. These two forces are constantly fighting each other, so you are not free to carry out your own intentions. What are your intentions on the roadway this year? Are your intentions to serve God? If so, set your compass toward the horizon. Set your compass out toward the horizon. Give yourself to the Lord in everything you do. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Give him every desire that you have, and then allow those desires to come back to you, to form your heart, and allow your heart to form your desires. Quench your thirst with the things that nourish and strengthen not only your body, but your spirit and your soul. And together, by the end of this year, I will meet you at the horizon. God bless you.